everybody. Welcome back to Event About It, the Dynamic Dialogue After Show. I'm your host, Megan Martin, and I am here with the queen of exceptional experiences, Neen James. And a quick reminder about who Neen is for our listener. She's a leadership strategist, dynamic keynote speaker, and the author of Folding Time, Attention Pays, and the upcoming Exceptional Experiences. With boundless energy, her clients often call her the Energizer Bunny. Quick wit and actionable insight, she serves as a confidant to C-suite leaders to help them elevate experiences and achieve greater focus, communication, and influence. There's so many things I could continue reading about her bio. She's worked with all kinds of leaders, Fortune 500 companies, even worked with the FBI, which is super interesting to me, on the board of the World Luxury Chamber of Commerce. And she is based out of Tampa, Florida, originally from Australia. I think we can notice that in always your welcomes of good day. And she's here to empower individuals to prioritize what matters most so they can create exceptional experiences that drive results and foster lasting connections. Well, welcome, Neen, to the After Show.
G'day. I love this format that you've created. It's so fun.
Well, thank you. We're excited about it. We're going to get into some more nuts and bolts about the book. We talked a little bit about champagne moments in the podcast. Walk us through what is a champagne moment.
A champagne moment is something that brings you joy, something that makes you smile, and they're around us every day. And I think one of the things we need to think about like all of the lovely little bubbles in a glass. Think of the things that like bubble up and make you smile, things you celebrate, things that bring you joy. In our world right now, we need champagne moments. And so I am definitely on a mission to help people find them every day. It could be the simplicity, Megan, of sipping your coffee, tea, or matcha out of a delightful coffee mug or teacup that brings you joy. And what I want people to think about when they're watching this or listening to it is take a photo of that. Hashtag champagne moments, tag me Neen James so I can share it with the world as well. Let's teach ourselves to start looking for champagne moments every day for ourselves, for our team, for our clients, and the community in which we serve.
Absolutely. There's a quote from the book that stood out with me when talking about personalization. We talk a lot about in the events world, personalization at scale. It's actually a lot easier to scale these than people think. And here's one of the quotes from the book that stood out to me. Personalizing the experience does not always require grand gestures or customization. It's about paying attention. The most memorable experiences come from small, thoughtful details that make someone truly feel seen. And one show that I watched that I think highlights this very well is The Bear. I don't know if you watched The Bear on Hulu, but especially in season 2, when they're ramping up for the new restaurant, he sends all of them on these adventures to learn their trades a little bit more. And the cousin goes and they literally teach him in his hosting duties how to have these champagne moments. And I think it's a lot easier to spot them. And as you say, it's just a matter of paying attention. And I think if there was one takeaway from the book, that's probably what it is paying attention and having those thoughtful moments. Most of the techniques in the book just require creativity and commitment to implementation. That's a lot of what you talk about in it. What is your response to organizations that say things along the lines of, we're not creative, we don't have the resources to create red carpet experiences, companies don't think they have the time to do this? Like, what would you say to an org like that?
I think that's rubbish. That's just rubbish, because it doesn't have to involve a lot of money, and it certainly doesn't have to involve a lot of time. What organizations, it doesn't matter what brand I'm working with, whether it's a manufacturer or a luxury hotel, one of the things that we need to do is leverage the brilliance of the people who work in our team. It costs you nothing to have an ideation session about an upcoming event where you put some brilliant minds around a table together and say, hey, what are some things we've never thought about or we've seen at other events? And how do we then think about incorporating that? So for those people who say they don't have any creativity, that's rubbish. That is not true at all. What I believe is you need to tap into the brilliance of people who work with you. And if that doesn't feel right, tap into the clients who love you. Ask them about experiences they've seen or things that they would like, because instantly they will give you ideas. What I do believe, though, is we have to choose to invest time, attention, and energy in elevating experiences, right? And that's a little bit of tough love for some companies, because if you've always done something the same way and it's really comfortable to you, what happens is, I think a lot of brands, they spend an enormous amount of time, attention, and energy in attracting new clients or members or guests or patients or students. But then once they get them, they don't think about their retention, right? They're just on to try and find the next client. But what if we even focused our attention in being able to elevate the experience for the existing clients who people forget about? So I don't believe people don't have time, money, or resources, because the talent that is already around you might have the best idea ever. And so, what I would encourage people to think about is, if you're looking for champagne moments while you're dining out, while you're traveling, while you're walking through your local park, in your neighborhood, take note of something that captured your attention. Think, how do I translate that to my workplace? How could I take an element of that and then use that there? Because I think that if we were operating from this champagne moment lens of how to elevate everything, I think we would show up differently as leaders.
I agree. I think in the book you also use Delta as an example. I think
Right.
they have these champagne moments everywhere, especially the Porsche experience.
So
If anyone's ever had the chance to do it, it's incredible. It's not something you can sign up for. It's truly random. I've only, in all the years I've been flying with Delta, I've only had a chance to do it once. But I think about the way you translate that. Like you said, what if we created a Porsche experience at registration check-ins where you pick a random person who's coming through, and you give them this whole VIP, take them in another room, they have this really luxury experience at check-in, right? No cost, just it's a matter of execution. So I love that advice. Something else you say in the book quite a bit, it's the theme that resonates. We're going to talk about it a lot today. Luxury is a meaningful human connection. It's
true.
about experiences and not things.
Right.
So, what's a luxury mindset habit that you think every leader should adopt? Even if they're on like a startup budget, they don't have a lot of money, what's one mindset habit that they could start getting into luxury?
Behind the scenes access. So, what we discovered in our luxury mindset research is there's not one luxury mindset, there's four. But the one that I want people to really tune in, and you can find your own luxury mindset. There's a self assessment that Megan's going to put in the show notes. So it'll take you less than 5 minutes to find out your own. But behind the scenes access appeals to the luxury lover. And I'll tell you why that's important. Your behind the scenes access, if you have an event, maybe it is about a breakfast with the speaker. If you're paying for a keynote, they're already going to be there. Maybe you invite a couple of people, costs you nothing extra, and you put on a room and then you get to meet the speaker. Maybe it is the chef comes out and says hello tableside and meets people at the event and gets to meet them. But the behind the scenes access is what people are craving, and it doesn't have to cost you anything. It could be meeting the engineer who designed the product. It might be debriefing how a hotel works and like that whole secret back of house versus front of house. But I think if we were to adopt a behind the scenes access for our clients, for our attendees, for our guests, for our team, it's that surprise element that people want to know how something works. And then if you let them uncover that, that is pretty exciting. It doesn't have to cost you anything.
Yeah, I love that. It just brought back a memory of a Marriott event I went to years ago, and the evening event was an Alice in Wonderland theme. And we started in one room, cocktail hour, if you will, and then they actually took us through the service hallway, like we were going down the rabbit hole
Love
into
it.
another room that was then chairs hanging from the ceiling. Like it was very well done. But
So
that walking through the service hallway just
cool.
set the expectation of like you really felt like you were going down the Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole.
Yeah, and think about that level of creativity. Someone had just a simple idea, and they're like, well, what if we did this? And so I think if you can encourage your team to start asking, what if? What if they met the CEO? What if they met the engineer? What if they met our best client? What if they met this attendee who has been to 20 of these conferences? Like, let's give people that behind the scenes access into the way people think, into experiences, because that's what people talk about. I remember Alhai did this amazing event in the Bahamas, and it was their executive exchange. And we got to meet the trainer out of the dolphins and the sea lions. So that was cool to me. But then they were like, would you want to go see where we treat them and where their version of a vet is? And then do you want to meet them? I was like, sign me up. Anything with animals, I am there 1000%. But
By the way, I was on this experience and we talked our way into this experience, if I
but I feel
remember.
like I
He
can talk my way
offered,
into anything.
he offered, and we said yes. And I was like, don't offer it if you're not actually going to do
Right.
it. And so we did a little bit talk our
Do you
way into
remember how
this.
cool that
It
was? Like,
was amazing.
see, I get called the Energizer Bunny by all my meeting planners. I know that. But I have what I call in the book contagious confidence. Like, I walk into every room and I assume everyone wants to play with me. I always have, right? But I also believe everyone wants to help you. And so I think, why not ask? Like, can we go see where you treat them? Can we go play with them? Can we do this? And they're like, sure. What's the worst thing they can say? No? Okay. Like, I'm fine. But I think
Yeah.
one of the things we need to think about is put yourself in the mind, in the seat, in the shoes. Stilettos are good, but put yourself in the stilettos of your guest and think, what do they want to know? Like, what do they want to see? What are the questions they have? And then start unpacking them and answering them. That'll help because it elevates everything.
Absolutely. What's one of the wildest or maybe most fabulous experiences you've helped a brand create for a client? Or maybe one that you've experienced? Maybe during your research, was there a brand that sort of surprised and delight you? You share quite a few of them in your newsletter, so I'm curious, like, if there's one that stood out to you.
There's so many. Uh, in the other part of our time, I had shared with you one of the properties that I stay at frequently. I'm regularly in DC. My bestie lives there, and I love staying at the AKA Alexandria. And Chris is the GM there. And like some hotels, they have a hotel dog. His name is Senna. We love Senna. He's this massive big dog named after F1. I'm into F1. As soon as I met him, I was obsessed. We played, they took photos. So the next time that I stayed, I had shared that they put a photograph of me and Senna in the room with a little note with a paw print from Senna. But what I didn't share is that they knew what time I was checking in. So they made sure Senna was available to greet me. Now that cost them nothing but a little bit of organization, right? And so what I think we need to think about is there's so many ways to delight people that cost them a little bit of time, a little bit of stationery, and a little bit of creativity. That's it, right? So I think these systems of elevation are ways we can delight our clients, our guests, our team even. And so for me, I think what I'm looking for is personalization and customization. It takes nothing for you to handwrite a little note. It takes nothing to just use someone's name. It doesn't take a lot to see what they're into. When I stayed at the Library Hotel in New York a bajillion years ago, my girlfriend was focused. She taught people to read. So we stayed at the Library Hotel because I thought that would be fun for her because she loves books, right? So we stay in this hotel. And they said to us when we checked in, what are you doing today? And I said, I'm going to take her to Balthazar, one of my favorite restaurants in New York. It is French, fabulous, love it. Always go there. When we got back to our room, there was a book. It was a cookbook from Balthazar with a love note. And there was a bottle of Veuve Clicquot, because they'd been on my socials knowing I tell the story of Madame, with a note. We hope you had a lovely lunch at Balthazar, and we thought you would enjoy some champagne. Now, that is clever. Now, cyber stalking, sure, they're on my socials, but they asked the question, what are you doing today? It's the Library Hotel. I'm sure they have a suite of books available, or someone ran out to Balthazar, got the cookbook, and came back. What I want us to think about is, in that moment, not only have I told that story from stage so many times, it's in my book, Attention Pays. What happens is these little moments, these moments that make that person feel like they matter, that they've been seen, heard, and valued, they then tell everyone else. And exceptional experiences is about creating advocates. Think of advocates as an extension of your marketing team. If you create these champagne moments for your guests, for your attendees, for the people that you serve, they will tell others. They become your sales force. It costs you nothing. So think up front, what can I do to elevate this experience for that particular moment? And then, is it share worthy? Do they want to grab their phone, take a photo, post to their social media, or send to a friend like, oh my God, I love this? That's the kind of thing. So I've been delighted by so many things, and not just hotels, but one of the things we all need to think about is, how can we do something different? Right? Take something and elevate it. I stayed at went to this amazing restaurant when I was overseas. And the gentleman came out with this box, and I thought, oh, it's a cigar box. And my face was like, Why? It was a knife box. It was a box of knives. And he said, ma'am, what knife would you like to use? I mean, come on. I'd never seen a knife box in my life.
So you
Like,
got to pick your own knife to
I picked
use
my own
during
knife.
dinner.
I just, like, I know it sounds crazy. I've never seen that before. So think about these little moments, right? That I have to use a knife while I'm eating my dinner, but they
Of
gave me
course.
a choice.
And
Interesting.
I mean, in reality, all the knives were probably the same. But the fact that you got to pick your knife for dinner was the experience.
Yeah. Who knew? There's a
I love it.
sommelier for wine, and now there's a knife sommelier. Who knew? That's a thing.
There, who knew? Okay. So a lot of times we think these changes have to come from leadership, right? So top down. And what's something maybe a middle manager or the director of events, maybe they need a little bit of budget to elevate a moment or an experience or some part of the event. How can they convince senior leaders that it's worth investing in this sort of luxury mindset, the luxury experience, and like middle managers can be the champion? And I ask this question because I think brands like the Ritz-Carlton do this really well, where everyone is sort of trained in the luxury mindset. If you're going to work there, everyone has the ability to have that to do that surprise and delight moment. It doesn't have to be a manager, it can be anyone on staff. And that's something really unique that Ritz-Carlton does that not a lot of other brands do. So, how can we empower someone not on the C suite or someone not in leadership to elevate and execute on these luxury moments?
You know, it's funny that you say the Ritz-Carlton because Uwe Hamler, one of the co-founders, blurbed my book, and I got to meet him and interview him for the book. And I love that they empower all their team with a specific strategy, a system, and a budget. But when I think about one of my hospital clients I work with, right? We're trying to do this cultural transformation in a hospital. You don't think luxury when you think of a hospital, right? And they have chosen to serve in a community that is definitely a high needs community, and there's not a significant budget. So we created an ambassador program for them where people at all levels within the organization, we meet regularly and we brainstorm and ideate around different things we can do on site to make the patients feel more safe, to take care of the families of those patients. And so what we're using is the brilliance of the people in the room who are at the front lines who know. And then we work with the leaders and the board and the surgeons and all of those things and say, this is kind of what we're doing. So being able to create an ambassador program of a variety of different levels costs you nothing. But as that middle manager person, you could instigate it. You could say, hey, I would like to bring in the receptionist, the someone from the janitorial staff, someone from the training department, like have this really great diverse group of people, because I love diversity of thought, and then see what are some things we could do within the parameters of what we already have in structure in our hospital, manufacturing plant, our hotel or restaurant, uh, and then say, and now how do we think like a concierge? So High Point University, Nito Cobain is the president there and someone that I feature in the book. And Nito actually has concierges on site for the students. You can sign up to be a student concierge. They get training, they can take care of everything for you. And so that's something that was initiated with the students. And so imagine all the things that you can create if you take the best practices of things that happen in luxury hotels. And then what you do is you say, well, what's the return on investment for that? Well, it's deeper employee satisfaction scores, which will hopefully go up, right? It's client engagement and client sales, because what you're seeing is if someone's already a client with you and they continue to come back, there's the longevity of that relationship. When I was first in banking, that was my first job out of high school. I remember I had this really horrible boss, but one of the things that he taught me I've never forgotten. He said it's easier to upsell an existing client than it is to get a new client. So what we can think about is, as that middle manager person, think about, okay, who are the people that already love us? And how do we develop a deeper relationship with them? What would that take? Right? And then if you can put a business case together to support that with some sort of metrics around what you think that return on investment might be, whether it is quantitative or qualitative, that's how I would pitch it to leadership.
Absolutely. That's great advice. All right, switching gears just a little bit, but I've had the pleasure of being mentored by you. We've known each other for a few years now. We've had some very deep, meaningful conversations, and quite frankly, I'm not sure this podcast would even exist had it not been for some of those conversations we've had. You've also worked with some of the top executives in the world from some very, very iconic brands. What is one leadership trend that you wish would just kind of go away already? Everyone's talking about leadership and this is what leaders should do. And what's something you think that no, actually, leaders shouldn't do that?
That is a really good question. My initial response to that is leaders shouldn't be expected to know everything. And I think there's this expectation that, oh, you have the big fancy title or the big fancy office and right, all of those things. So you should know everything. And that's not really true. If anything, what I've noticed is the people who are closest to the client, the patient, the guest, the student, they're the people who have the deepest knowledge. And so I think what we need to be able to do is we need to be able to extend grace to leaders and say, okay, maybe they don't have all the answers, but you know what their job is to get the best out of the people that work with them, right? So I think one thing we could do is extend more grace to our leaders. But also, if you have the answer, if you're reporting to someone who doesn't, kindly suggest, hey, have you considered this? Would we consider this? And then give your opinion. So don't assume your leader has all the answers. What they're good at is bringing people around them who are experts in their area. So trust that leaders also have access to those people. The challenging thing about the most senior leaders that I work with, and I'm working with CEOs and their, the senior leadership team and those people, is they have access to information and they know what's happening at a much bigger level and they can't always disclose everything. And if you are further in the organization, in that organizational structure, and you can't always understand why they're doing something, not all leaders can tell you because it could affect their shareholders or technology or things that are happening. So I think we need to extend grace more. That's what I would like. I would like that leaders don't always have to have the answers. They need to know how to find them, but they may not always have them. So let's just stop judging leaders because they don't have the answer on the spot.
Something that just came to mind as we've talked a lot about today about these champagne moments and elevating experience for our customers. But what about employees too? Like, should CEOs and leadership be thinking about that when it comes to company culture and doing the same sort of mindset, but internally?
Think about, let's use the hotel example, right? We have front of house and back of house. If you go into a hotel lobby, it's fancy, it's beautiful. There's water with fruit bobbing in it at the front, and people's all dressed beautifully. And the best hotels also take that same treatment back of house. And so they have beautiful spaces back of house. And so one of the things I would like us to consider is, do the employee areas match the client areas? Are you paying attention to their break rooms, their cafeterias, their lockers, the areas where they are a lot of the time? Do you also have beautiful colors and artwork? And you could even elevate those horrible, dusty coffee machines that are disgusting. Maybe you could elevate that. Maybe you could think about different snacks, like fresh snacks, like thinking about how you could make their life really so much better. How could you make it exceptional for them? Because remember, they're serving your client, they're serving the patient, the guest, the student, etc. And so I think we need to think about investing in back of house as much as we do front of house. Lighting, security, parking lots, like all those little extra things. One of my clients are rocket scientists, like real rocket scientists. And I remember saying to them, I was like, we make fun of you. Like we say, oh, it's not rocket science. It really is, right? But what's interesting is they have made sure that they have access to cleaning services, chef services. I mean, because when they're focused on a particular challenge, they're so all in, they forget about taking care of themselves. But what this company does well is takes care of the whole human, not just giving them a desk or a place to be. So let's think about what could we do to make our team's life easier or more exceptional? Because when we start to do that, they feel valued, seen, and heard. And then that has a ripple effect because you're getting them to then take care of others. So, what we never want is our team to say, gosh, the people that pay us are much better looked after than we are. And I just want people to think about that front of house mentality for back of house.
It's the whole put your mask on before helping others on an airplane, right? Like we have to take care of ourselves to be able to show up in the best way possible for our customers and our clients or students or whomever the audience may be.
And I think the simplicity of, think about this. If you were mystery shopping your office, your organization, your event, Like, as a mystery shopper, what would you notice? Like, and I would encourage leaders to do this. This is why I always tell my realtors to attend an open house, my restaurants, to make sure they go and eat a meal somewhere else. I tell my hoteliers to sleep in a bed. Like, I am always asking you to mystery shop your own service. It's an easy, no cost idea. And if you're mentoring someone, get your mentee to do it. Get them to go out and learn, what are other brands doing? What are they doing that we could also incorporate that costs you nothing? But do it for your own business and really have this fresh perspective. So when you walk on site, do you notice a weed? Do you notice any windows that need to be cleaned? Because all these little attention to details, your team sees it every day. And we want to make sure they have the best environment to be their best productive self.
Love that advice. So, if someone is starting to elevate their leadership, maybe they're going for that first director job or first manager job, what's a leadership book that you think is a must read and one that should be set on the bookshelf and never opened again?
Okay, so I would say you can pretty much guarantee, you and I are part of the Next Big Idea Club. So I'm a massive fan of Adam Grant. It doesn't even matter which book you read or which TED Talk you watch. I guarantee you'll learn something.
Think Again's my favorite in case anybody wants
I
a
was just
plug.
going to say, Think Again. That's the book. I was like, Think Again, because it'll make you think differently. And I love
Yes.
diversity of thought. It is so important to me. So anything by Adam, follow him on social media for free, read any book, watch any TED Talk. You will get so many gems. That's one thing that I would say. As far as, I would never want to diss a book. So because as an author and a
Of
thought leader,
course.
I would never want to say anything bad about a book. What I will say is that some books were written in a time where we didn't have the same diversity of thought that we have now. And where some people might assume great is enough, it's not. And so it's not about being great. It's about being exceptional. And so I think sometimes books that were written at a time were really relevant at that time, but things have evolved since then. And so what I would encourage people to do in your leadership journey is read outside of your industry as well. Look at the trades for things outside of your industry. Look at thought leaders who might be, for example, if you're in luxury hotels, look at what luxury real estate is doing. Like, let's have a think about learning from other people. What I would suggest is that, as well as books, I would listen and engage in podcasts and things that are current and relevant for today. But my bookshelf, if you look at my bookshelf, I'll see if I can show you, I don't keep a lot of books. Like, I read hundreds and hundreds. Let me see if I can go this way. See, that's it. That's all I keep. For those of you who are listening at home, I'm sharing less than 100 books on my bookshelf. But what I do is I love to read a book and then give it away. So it's really got to earn its way on my bookshelf. There are books that I would recommend, that anything by Adam Grant. There is a phenomenal book that I recommend to every person that I coach and anyone that I work with, and that is called Exactly What to Say by Phil Jones. And it is 26 different statements, questions that everyone can ask. I love that. And a real oldie but a goodie is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. That book,
It's
written
a
in the early
classic.
1900s, is as timeless today as it was back then. But one of the things he says that's always stuck with me is, a person's name is the sweetest sound. And no matter what level you are in the organization, if you can be using people's names, it's customization and personalization at a no-cost attention-grabbing strategy.
I use this at shows all of the time when I was in the sales. I mean, we put the first name huge on people's name badges, so use it. So like as they're walking down the aisle, hey Neen, how's it going today? Hey
Right?
James, how's it going today? It's a very easy, low cost way to elevate
Cost you
and
nothing.
make someone feel seen.
Yes.
I love that advice. Okay. You've obviously made pink your power color. You see it all over the website. We're both wearing pink today. Has it ever helped or hilariously backfired in a boardroom where you walked in a room and a room full of men were like, oh my gosh, look at this pint-sized powerhouse in her pink. What are we even going to learn today?
People can't tell by, if you're not watching this, but I'm 4'10" and a half, so I'm not exactly the tallest person in the room, and I sound like I'm 5. So let's add that combination. I will never forget, I was working with a New York firm and the managing partner, and I was standing in their boardroom with some of their top attorneys, and I remember the managing partner walking past and literally doing a double take, and I saw him say to the receptionist, "What is that?" Like literally, what is that? And he was pointing at me. And there I was, like so proud in my little pink suit with my little pink briefcase. And so when he did come in, I was very quick to go, it's this, this, and this. And he was like, oh, right. And so like, but the packaging to him, because everyone was in beige or navy, it was a very highbrow firm. So that one always cracks me up. What's really interesting though, when you choose color, and I've always used hot pink because I think hot pink is such a powerful color, right? But I was keynoting in DC and there was an event, and something like 70% of the room, the women had chosen to wear pink. So they all came up to me afterwards to have a photograph. Now, if I don't wear pink on property or at the conference, people will be like, what, like, what's going on? So even though it wasn't always intentional at the beginning, it has become part of my brand. And I'm really proud of that. People will wear pink and say, I wore pink for you, or I saw this and I thought of you. And so for us as marketers, I think we get an opportunity to take something that might be unique that we hadn't even thought about, but we can make it part of what makes our event or our, theme something that is really special and unique. And I love that.
We're doing the same thing with the podcast. Event About It is orange. All things are orange. We're making it a thing. So, and I think the other piece to it, actually, Adam Grant talks a lot about this in some of his books, is the power of color and showing up and how that is immediately setting the mood. So when I think about translating that into events, what colors are in the room? Is it dark reds and the lights are low, and like what kind of mood does that set as someone's walking into your event for the first time? What music plays a similar role as lighting does. These little touch points that elevate an experience for almost no cost.
Most draping, is black, right? And I'm the keynote. I can't wear a black dress on a black draped stage because I'm gonna just like look like a floating head, right? So, and whenever there's a photo with me, because sometimes the selfie line is super long and people want to take a photo, which I love, but it's often like black or navy, and there's no disrespect for those colors, and then pink, like so, like there are easy ways that you can also be top of mind and top of market, and color is an easy way to do that.
Absolutely. So we've mentioned a couple of times that you're known as the Energizer Bunny on stage by many of your clients. And what's maybe a secret to showing up 100% every time?
I have a whole process in place. For example, the team knows I don't make a decision when I'm on client side. I don't talk to another client when I'm on client side. I don't look at my email when I'm client side. So because my role is to stand in service of that client, whether it is facilitating a strategic planning in their boardroom or whether it is in their ballroom for 1,000 of their top performers. And so for me to stay fully present, it means I am disconnected from devices. And so where I am engaging with the device is I'll be on the conference app, I'll be taking photos with attendees, I'll be sharing that. But what my job is so my brain is so full of them, their facts, the customization, the research I've done, the interviews that I've conducted. That's how I stay present. I never watch the news. I never turn on a TV in my hotel room. I stay off social media, anything that could potentially pollute my brain. So for me to be fully present, I'm protecting my inputs. I often say that your brain is like this luxury real estate, right? And you don't want to decorate it with a cheap decorator, right? Don't decorate it with cheap thoughts or pollute it with unnecessary things. And so for me, the way to stay fully present is to make sure I've done all of my due diligence and research in advance. I protect my brain and my energy levels when I'm on site. And then once I get in the car to go to the airport, then I can handle whatever's happened in my world. But until that point, my whole world could fall apart. I wouldn't even know about it. And that's fine because my job is to be fully present in that moment.
I think that's great advice all around. So when you're going off site, you've just given 100% to your client, your keynote, your session, whatever it may be. What's the guilty pleasure that you check out with? When Neen's unplugged, what is she doing?
We all know that I love a good champagne, right? And so maybe I will have a lovely glass of champagne at the airport lounge, if they have champagne. I will do that. I will also I am a person who has a guilty pleasure of like cat videos. Like seriously, and I have a cat. So like bring them on, right? Cat videos or people who are returning from service, seeing their kids at school and surprising them. I will bawl my eyes out. I love that stuff. So for me, that's guilty pleasure of just that mindlessness of scrolling for the positive. Cats make me laugh, so that always makes me laugh. A glass of champagne for sure. But I think they're not like I don't know if they're guilty pleasures, but the things that I just feel like, well, I did a really great job, so I deserve this little champagne, or I deserve to be scrolling on Instagram, right? Instead of being productive and doing other work.
Sometimes the unproductive moments is what you need to recharge that
Hmm.
spurs inspiration. So I think
Yeah,
a lot of
and
us
laugh.
forget about unplugging. Like you just need to unplug and laugh and do some of that, downtime, compression, recharge.
Yeah, I think it's also good for those, especially in this industry where you're in such a high pressure delivery opportunity, and you do all of this work, and then you're exhausted. You leave it all at the event. You're like left it on the field or whatever the sports people say, right? You've done that. But I think you've got to schedule the recovery and know that you need to schedule that recovery after, right? And so for me, scheduling recovery is also sometimes just FaceTiming my bestie and going, and then this happened, and then this happened. And so I think also as event professionals, having someone that you can just debrief with, defrag, like just to celebrate the moments with you, talk about the ridiculousness, to your point, vent about it, right?
Yeah,
Because nothing always goes the way it is supposed to. But having people in your life that are kind of on call, on tap, that you can just say, hey, this happened. I need to talk about it. And I think that's important to have too.
agreed. Okay, last couple questions as we're wrapping up. You're invited to a luxury retreat with 3 speakers. Who are you inviting to speak, and maybe who's on the guest list?
Oh, Adam Grant, Brene Brown,
Mm, both
Will
classics.
Gadara. These are my
Amazing.
speakers, right?
Amazing.
And my attendees, uh, that's a really great question. It's an event that is available like in person or virtual, so everyone can have access to it. So there's no barriers to entry. That's what I would say about that. Yeah.
Well, 3 great speakers. So I think, and I mean, I would show up to that retreat with Adam Grant and Brene Brown for sure. Okay, last 2 questions. Tell us your most outrageous rider request or one you wish you could put on your rider that you haven't yet.
So this may not this my writer literally says Nina's too little to stand behind the podium, so please remove the podium. Like it literally says that because I'm so tiny. Like, so that's something like strike the podium, right? And I also have the crew tape the seams on the stage if there's like gaps because I wear stilettos so much, right? Too. So it seems so silly when it's written, but that's something that I always have in there. And it's not in my writer, but it is something I talk to meeting professionals about because I talk about Madame Clicquot in my keynotes. I often ask them to bring a bottle. Like I don't know what. Then so the meeting professionals are like, "What do you want?" I was like, "Yeah, I want a bottle of champagne, not for me to like drink, but I give it away. That is something that I do." But yeah, so it does sound ridiculous when I say it out loud like that, but it all has purpose. So, is there anything that I would love added to it? Just don't know because I already say please don't serve food when I'm speaking. Like, I don't like being the lunchtime speaker with food being served.
I
That's
don't
like
think any speaker does. We
no.
should just ban that from the event world
That would be
moving
so
forward.
amazing. Imagine if you could start that movement. I
Uh,
get the efficiency. I know why people want to do it. It's just not fun.
well, and it's not a good attendee experience either, which we've talked about in the podcast. All right, last question. What would 25-year-old Neen be shocked to know about current day?
I think she would be shocked to see that we still don't have the diversity of thought and acceptance in the world that she thought we would have. Because being an Australian, we're just this melting pot of nationalities. We don't even have a nationality. Like literally, we take everyone from every country. And so, because I grew up that way, I always assumed that was the case. And the more that I travel and see the world and some of the things that are happening now, I think we're going backwards from that. And so what I would love is for everyone listening to this is to embrace more diversity of thought. Let's extend grace to everybody and just meet meet them where they are instead of placing our own judgments or assumptions on them. So that's what I think she would be shocked, is we're still talking about some of these crazy things that I thought would have been solved a long time ago.
I agree. Well, that's a great place to wrap up our after show. Thank you for having us. Cheers to more champagne moments.
Cheers to
It's
champagne
such a
moments.
pleasure to have you, and we'll see you on the next one.